my name is Joshua Kitts, and today I want to talk about Simple Superheroes, the role-playing game of infinite powers and possibilities, also known as Simple Superheroes number 0. It's called number 0 because this is where you create your characters, and there are plenty of example characters as well. Simple Superheroes is a game I designed and wrote, so my commentary on this will be a little different than normal, I would think. I do also want to point out that for those of you who have been watching a few of these videos, you may have noticed all of the books that I tend to have pointing outwards in these videos. All of those are available on the Composed Dream Game Marketplace, which I run. Now, if you pick up any of those titles, I get 10%. We take a very small cut. And we sell both directly to consumers and to Canadian local game stores. So we do always encourage you to go out and support your local game store. One of the things we do to facilitate that is, yes, we sell print and PDF. If for some reason you have picked up your book from a Canadian local game store and they got it from us, you always can come to us and ask for a PDF, and we'll provide that with pleasure, and thanks for having picked it up from a Canadian local game store. I hope that encourages you to check out the Composed Dream Game Marketplace. Now, as I said, Simple Superheroes number 0 is a game I designed and wrote. Its genesis came out of me really wanting to run a superhero game because I love superheroes and I've been collecting comic books for forever, and I really couldn't find a game engine that I really wanted to run for people. I spent considerable time investigating one that I would want to buy and run, or just run, I should say, and I never really found one that I wanted, so I ended up, as many people do, making one myself. So I ran it for my friends, and I ran it at conventions, and I ran it at more conventions, and I ran it for my friends some more, and eventually the result was this book here. The core engine stayed pretty much the same throughout, though there were definitely some modifications that made it a significantly better game along the way, made it able to handle a lot of different kinds of powers. One of my main objectives was always to be able to create characters without looking through a big book that had all sorts of different potential powers, where you weren't looking up from a list of powers and then customizing it from there. You were using a framework to set up your own powers, and a framework that was easily understood. So this framework in Simple Superheroes, you can get for free in the Heart of Simple Superheroes, which is some of the first 3 pages in this book. Character creation 1 page, the rules in 1 page, and options and special actions. So you can go and download the Heart of Simple Superheroes and some of the example characters, and you'll have a very good sense of the rules. You might even be able to run a game. The bulk of this book, of course, is examples so that you can run a much better game or understand the intentions behind things much better. And a good, from about page 70 on, and the book is nearly 120 pages, are all example characters, and most character write-ups are a single page. So there's a lot of example characters, foes, villains, enemies, and so on throughout this. Okay, so beyond that, what is in this book? I've talked about lots of example characters and villains and foes. It is black and white on the interior, 2 columns of pretty easy to read text, I would say. Example text has a slightly different font, and there are some black and white illustrations throughout. Um, there is a very brief example scenario, which is 1 page, and with a half page that is more of a sketch, which outlines also some events that could happen afterwards. Le Jardin du Ciel. There are some example cities that you could use. One of them being New Carthage, which is the setting for the next few issues in Simple Superheroes 1 through 4 at least. New Carthage is going to be the city, but there isn't a baked-in setting to this at all. It is meant to be an engine that you can use to run any superhero adventure, including at different power tiers. So we talk in the book about 4 different power tiers: Vigilante, Empowered, which tends to be Spider-Man and the type of people he's fighting, Planetary, and then Cosmic. It's often difficult for 5 people getting together to come up with 5 cosmic character concepts that work relatively well together, so that tends to be played relatively rarely. The main difference in changes is just conceptual. So the scope of what your talents can do changes, and how you interact with normal people changes. So the rules for interacting with normal people change, but the way you build your character doesn't really change. So the framework for Simple Superheroes is you have a rank, that's the number of 6-sided dice you get to roll for each talent. You give that talent a name, you can name it whatever you like that makes sense. You put it in an ability category, and you give it an intent. So there's sort of the 3 pillars of ability category, intent, and rank that informs what you can do and how powerful your talent is. One talent on its own in, say, fire doesn't give you a lot of flexibility. It's very narrow. So you probably, if you have a fire-themed character, you probably have many fire-based talents. One of the things that does is keep things constrained and interesting, so lots of different characters can contribute, and it also gives lots of room for growth for player characters, so they can develop lots of new talents. So dice rolls are a opposed dice pool. So if you had a rank 5 talent, which is the maximum, you'd roll 5 dice. And if you were attacking somebody, they might roll, say, 3 dice in opposition, and you compare the highest to the next highest, and so on. And they're, by default, 6-sided dice. Sometimes when I play Cosmic Tier, I decide to use 12-sided dice. It feels a little more superhuman, perhaps, I suppose. It's a fun change. But mechanically it works the same. So, Defender wins on ties, and 2s and 1s are always ignored. So anything 3 and up is considered a basic success. So it's a modified risk mechanic in many ways. The Simple Superheroes is very much a rulings instead of rules kind of game. So if you set up a precedent by ruling a certain way, you should probably consider continue to hold up that ruling and have it work as you'd like for your table. It's still very traditional RPG in many ways, so people don't have much narrative control. Arguably, you can use strain points to exert some sort of narrative control, and you can have talents that represent, say, other people or minions and so on, but generally speaking, your players aren't exerting narrative control. They're just playing their one PC. They have relations, and that's just meant to represent the trope of the superhero genre of people or things that a character cares about getting into trouble and them saving them. And when that happens, it's a nice way to earn strength points back so that they can fight harder. You spend strength points primarily to pull off stunts with your superpower finesse, or to gain extra dice on your normal rolls. Heroes can team up and pool their different talents together and subtract a die, and they can do, essentially, if they've pooled a talent once, they've done it once in that fight. And that's kind of the generic rule. So it's a good way to defeat the big bad, work together with other superheroes on your team, pool some talents together. As long as it makes sense for the GM, you get to combine dice. From normal humans and perceived power level, I'm going to read some of the entry for planetary tier. So, heroes at this tier have little to fear from normals, unless confronted by a whole military company. Normal humans simply don't pose a threat unless they are backed by some kind of super tech. Specialized agency and task forces drilled to deal with metahumans are the only normals likely to trouble a planetary tier hero. A typical police officer firing his gun at a planetary hero should not even receive a roll. It is simply color. Sorry for the aside. A military company prepared to face metahumans will have some chance of causing difficulty or damage. There are 3 sets of rules outlined below to handle these cases: special agents, strike forces, and hordes. So there are some specialized mechanics for running foes at different power tiers. But in the main, when it comes to hero versus hero, or versus major villains, the way you build characters and so on stays identical. Well, I could talk about Simple Superheroes number 0 for forever, I'm sure, and tell you more about many different things about it, because it is my baby after all. But I think it's best to leave it at that for now. I do hope this has piqued your interest in picking up a copy of Simple Superheroes number 0 from the marketplace. Print copies are $30 right now, and that comes bundled with a PDF. If you purchase just a PDF, that is $15. Any print copy on the Composed Dream marketplace does always come up with a PDF copy complimentarily. And we always encourage you to see if your local game store might be carrying any of our titles. Thank you for listening, and good game.